So welcome back to Third Age Reforged and to another battle replay, and as I'm sure you can tell from the scenery, this one is going to be on Moria, and it's been quite a while since I've done Moria actually, so that's why I decided to do this replay now, because a few of the other sieges I've got are maps that we've seen somewhat more recently, like the Grey Havens, and also I believe I've got one from Minas Tirith as well, but obviously that was also quite recent, and Minas Tirith sieges tend to be exceedingly long, even longer than those on Moria, so I figured that I would leave that for a little while still. And also this is going to be a good litmus test of whether or not my new reshade settings, which are I think a little bit more demanding, will be able to sort of keep pace with the game now, because obviously Moria, there is obviously quite a lot of hefty choke point fighting with a lot of units all in the same place, and obviously there are a lot of units involved as well, so we'll see if the game is good enough to not crash. I truly hope it is, because this is quite a long one, nearly 50,000 frames in fact. So we will be having a look at the attacking armies first of all, and then we'll go through the defending armies. It's almost completely good versus evil. Certainly the defenders are a little bit more lore friendly. It's almost the battle of the 5 armies in here, with the forces of Dale, the Woodland Realm, and also the dwarves from Khazad-dûm. Not Erebor, but still Balin is still present, so it's kind of the same thing. And then the attackers will be made up first of all. We have Rudar, played by Kvorin 18. So they're going to be assaulting this side of the settlement all on their lonesome, which is actually quite unfortunate for them, because it means that they are most certainly going to have the hardest task. The other 3 I think are all going to go through the same door, which is not something I'd recommend actually, because it allows the dwarves in the Woodland Realm in particular to mass some of their nastier units together to try and stop the 3 armies, and then it sort of leaves a more skeleton crew can then try and defend against just the Rudar army. You can see that some goblins are actually pushing the catapult for Rudar here, and the catapult is still a useful tool, particularly on a more cramped, well, in the more cramped environments that Moria offers you. We also have some Dunman spears, which obviously again very, very basic as far as spears go. They're not really going to be up to the task of killing too much, particularly in the way of the high tier units that all of the defending factions have, but obviously you do need numbers when you're on the attack. You need some disposable units, and that's exactly what the Dunman spearmen are. There's some more pushing up the ram here as well. Rudar swordsmen are a little bit better. They will be able to sort of hold their own in melee just a little bit better than the Dunman spears at the very least, but I still wouldn't expect them to accomplish too much unless there's a lot of Lake Town units, in which case they could trade quite nicely with them. But other than that, they are going to be in for the same reason that the Dunman spearmen are, the numbers more than anything else. It's more Rudar swordsmen. I mean, Rudar have brought a fairly hefty army in terms of numbers, which is a good thing considering Kvorin is going to be all on his own. A lot of Rudar clansmen, they could be used to try and push through, but if there are any dwarven units on this side of the settlement, that is probably ill-advised, because the dwarves, of course, have got that nice mass to them. And also, while the Rudar clansmen don't have terrible attack values for spears, they still have the spear malice, and most of the dwarven infantry will eat them for breakfast, as will most of the other standard infantry, to be fair. But still, the Rudar clansmen, as far as spearmen go, can be a very useful tool on the attack in a settlement like this, and he's got a lot of them as well. He's got a very large army indeed, actually. More Rudar swordsmen. He's got some Ettenmoor's Troll Hunters here at the front, which again, probably the best tool that Rudar have to deal with a defence like this, because unlike the Reforged Javelins, you've got, they may be multiple HP, but they're very expensive and don't have a lot of armour, so when that HP is gone, ranged units can easily kill them. The Ettenmoor's Troll Hunters, however, shields, good armour, so they should be able to actually get in position and let off a few volleys before they're focused down if Kvorin decides to commit them early, which should lead them in stand in pretty good stead. But again, they are spears in melee, so when they run out of ammo, maybe not the most effective. Also some Rudar marksmen again. Good to have a little bit of range pressure. A lot of ammunition on the Rudar marksmen, as I've said many times before. In the middle over here we do have some more Rudar clansmen. Is that just about it? Well, we do have in the background over here the General's Bodyguard. Unsurprising to see the Witch Realm Enslavers, because the AP on these guys is going to be very, very handy against the Dwarves of Khazad-dûm and the Kingdom of Dale. And I believe we're just going to have some more ranged units up here on the hill. We've got some Dunman Hunters, yeah, so the even lower tier archers over here, with another unit of Rudar marksmen up here on the side. I'm not sure why the trees outside Moria are jungle now, but there you go. It's possible that there are also hidden units like the Franadine Rangers and the Reforged Javelins around, but I wouldn't think there are too much, because it's quite a hefty army that is visible. Now we shall move on to the one sort of lore unfriendly faction which is on the attack, and that is of course the Kingdom of Arthedain. We can just pretend that they're Numenor, because Numenor of course can be evil or good in the upcoming 0.97 patch, so Arthedain will be sort of taking that role upon themselves here. Dunedain Peacekeepers, which again, as far as spearmen go, similar to elves, more focus on skill than armour, which does stand them in pretty good stead when it comes to them fighting in melee. We also have some Arthedain men-at-arms, obviously with the first level of armour upgrade as well, just the breastplate, which will make them just that little bit tankier against arrows, which, considering the Woodland Realm and Dale are on the defence, that will be a very handy thing to have indeed. And then a huge cluster of these men. So he's got some dismounted Foremost Array Knights, Evandim Archers, Pikemen that have got the armour upgrade, more Men-at-Arms that have got the upgrade, Evandim Spears are in there as well. Oh, excuse me. That's pretty much it. I mean, I can't see anything too far out of the ordinary there. So we've got some Arthedain Men-at-Arms as well, dismounted Knights of Annuminous, which is where the General's going to be, which again, not too surprising there. Multiple HP, safe place to put him in a siege like this. More Arthedain Men-at-Arms. So again, mostly a numbers game here for the Arthedain army, it would seem. He's gone for mostly the sort of standard Men-at-Arms, spears and pikes, as well as a few sort of basic archers, which is not the worst thing in the world when you're attacking a settlement like Moria. Meanwhile, taking point, we have Pavlos27, who is going to be playing as Mordor. I should say that Ding the King is playing as Arthedain as well. So we've got some Orc Archers, we've got some Morannon Infantry here on the front. Orc Archers as well. I would imagine that Mordor, again, you can always bet on Mordor to bring the numbers, so we've got the Morannon Halberds as well. Good AP to be using against Dale and the Dwarves. A little bit dark, actually, down here in the Mordor armies. You can barely tell the units apart. We can see that there are some Black Legion of Barad-dûr, everyone's favourite shield-pushing unit. And we've got the Minas Morgul chosen as well. So a good mix here, including some Olag High, some Minas Morgul bodyguard. We've got, perhaps, I would be surprised not to see the Nazgul in a battle like this, to be honest with you, and indeed they are here, along with the Temple Guard and the Temple Executioners. So good stuff to see there. And then finally, we have the Easterlings of Rune, played by Decor, and he's got all of his units in a big long line, so that makes it very easy for me. A couple of Baljoss Tribesmen for those armour-piercing javelins. A few units of Narim as well, just to add some extra range pressure. Maybe a little bit too much in the way of Narim, actually. Rune would be much better served, I think, bringing more AP troops. Good thing he does have a lot of Flag Rim at the very least, and also some Scion Rim and the Gamp Rim. So he does have the sort of the full core of the Golden Boys. He's gone for a little bit more quality overall, I suppose, than his allies, going for sort of the higher tier troops rather than the lower tier. And then his general is going to be in the Carmel's Chosen, which again, much like the dismounted Knights of Annuminous, multiple HP, General's Bodyguard unit on foot, very safe place to put your general. Anyway, we shall now head within the settlement to see what the defenders have going on. So we have Death Eater, who is going to be playing as Mirkwood. He's got some Hiri Lung here on the front line, which should be pretty good at dealing with most of the enemy forces, to be fair. Again, heavy Elven swordsmen are very, very skillful. It's going to take some of the better units to take them on one-to-one, particularly something like the Temple Executioners would be able to do it, of course, but you know, they're going to be able to carve their way through. They're a little bit isolated. They should probably retreat with the rest of their forces. Looks like they're going to let them advance in through the gate immediately, and they're going to instead form up a combined front line of the Lake Town Pikemen and the Thandrimi Erin. So the Thandrimi Erin, obviously Elven spears. The one thing that Mirkwood do lack, of course, is pole arms of any variety, so they're being augmented by Dale here with their own Lake Town Pikemen. There's another unit of them just back here as well, being backed up by, of course, Mirkwood's Thurn Tower and some Lake Town Bowmen as well, so a good mix of quantity and quality between Dale and Mirkwood here. Hiri Ek and Hiri Lung as well, so heavy Elven spears and swordsmen. Back here we've got some Dalian marksmen, some Lake Town River Patrol over the way, along with the Maethir Ilaz Gallen as well. So Dale and Mirkwood definitely sort of mixing together very well here with their strengths. And some Earls of Escarot as well, ready to come in should they be needed. Obviously a very solid line infantry unit indeed, heavily armoured. But again, against Rune and Mordor, they definitely have the AP tools to take them down. But other than that, the Earls of Escarot are still going to make a very solid front line indeed. We also have the Barding Herd and the Morroquendi Pikes, so Blue Ranger for Dale, definitely bringing the pole arms here, which is definitely good to see. The Morroquendi Pikes in particular. Obviously, Elven Pikemen, as we've seen. You know, the Morroquendi are not quite as good, I think, as the Imladris Pikes, but they're not far behind, and gives you an idea of the sort of calibre of unit that they are. Dalian Catapult, more Dalian Marksmen, more River Patrol, as well as some Swordmasters of Karnan. We're starting to get into the Dwarven units as well. The Girians Paladins are back here. And then Pemberton, who is going to be playing as the Dwarves of Khazad-dûm. He's got some Sons of the Fallen, a couple of units of 1st Legion Pikes in here as well, and also the Mithril Guard and the Guards of Khazad-dûm. Unsurprising to see the mighty Dwarven Infantry, as well as the Legion Bodyguard, which is where Balin is going to be. We've also got some Greenwood Lumbermen over here, just for some cheap AP. And then up here we do have some more ranged units from Dale as well, some Athala Rangers. We have some more Swordmasters of Karnan, and some more Morroquendi Pikes and Barding Herd actually, so definitely going for a focus on those pole arms. Some Delupeng, Iem and Dwyer, good to see more Rangers as well. Here Alth, some Arguate Nanwaith, so that's obviously the General's Bodyguard for Mirkwood with Thranduil right there, and some Lake Town Bowmen. And then finally on the other side of the settlement, sort of the front line over here, Pemberton has got some Sentries of Khazad-dûm, Maethir Ilaz Gallen, some Aradirith Amon Lank, some Orcans of Khazad-dûm, Hiri Peng, and there's quite a lot of units down here actually, so we've got some more 4th Legion, Sons of the Fallen, Khazad-dûm Reclaimers and 3rd Legion. I mean, certainly Rudao don't stand too much of a chance of getting through here all on their lonesome. In fact, I think the defenders could even get away with sallying out and destroying Rudao here. It would be much more risky, of course, but they could probably do it. A lot of these units, I think, are going to need to be siphoned off to defend the other side. Thandramierin, sentries, Morthurni Tower, 4th Legion, and some more heavy Elven units. So, I will make a little cut here because, you know, it probably will take the attackers a little bit of time to sort of manoeuvre their armies into such a position where they're ready to actually start coming into the settlement. So, yeah, we will rejoin when the battle begins. So, the battle has begun, and it is at range, which will certainly suit the elves within the settlement there. The 30 Tower managing to get the first volley off onto this very narrow column of this formation of Dunman hunters.
The enemy have the walls. Look to our defense, or all will be lost.
I mean, enemy have the walls, really? Anyway, the Dunman hunters immediately deciding that maybe this isn't the fight they want to be taking, as the 30 Tower are already very much entrenched within the settlement. And it's going to be difficult for Rudao in particular here, I think. It's always going to be a tricky proposition when you're on your own and you're having to advance into a combined arms defence, the likes of which Mirkwood and Khazad-dûm can lay on for you. On the other side, however, plentiful reinforcements. You can see obviously that Mordor are going to be taking point with their lower tier units, which is completely unsurprising, of course. We can see the Orc Archers getting into position here, and the Orc Fodder are going to be leading the way as the meat shield. But also Arthedain are going to be able to come in with their slightly more tanky archers. I mean, the Evendim archers and the Orc archers are both not of the highest quality, but the Evendim archers do have that little shield value, which will certainly help them. And these are the sort of units which the attackers won't mind taking damage, but the Orc archers and the Evendim archers. And Dale are going to have to respond in some way to these units coming into this area over here. But the Lake Town Bowmen are here, doing some damage, but you can see that the Dalian Marksmen and this sort of tightly clumped formation, particularly of Lake Town Pikemen, already taking damage, so this is going to demand some sort of response. The Greenwood Lumbermen are coming in, however, and they're sort of coming in from left field, and they are going to force the Orc Fodder to either retreat or engage. And this is a fight that the Greenwood Lumbermen will win. It wasn't the best of charges, I must say. They're charging now, but the Greenwood Lumbermen, of course, do have that nice damage that having a big two-handed axe will give you, and the Orc Fodder don't really have a great deal. Unfortunately for the Greenwood Lumbermen, however, they are a rather fragile unit, and if they are unsupported, even Orc Fodder will be able to do some damage to them at the very least. We can see some fire arrows are actually coming forward now, but it is on very, very weak troops, or very, very weak archers, so, you know, and it's also going into primarily the Elves of Escaroth, which, with their heavy armour and shields, they aren't going to be too bothered about engaging there. Meanwhile, we can see the Orc Fodder. Victory seems certain for them, actually, and the engagement that they have is actually rather good for them, because they've got that little sort of crescent moon shape that's going in their favour. So the Greenwood Lumbermen actually not faring too well. They're also pointing the wrong way, so Blue Ranger not really using his Greenwood Lumberman in the correct fashion. Certainly not. We can actually see over here some Dunman Hunters starting to move into position, and actually Rudao have moved forward to engage in melee. Unfortunately for them, however, their Dunman Spears are being asked to go up against a combination of Thandramierin and upgraded 4th Legion Shield Guard, and the 4th Legion don't even have the Spear Malice, so the Dunman Spears are going to be mulched in melee here. And if this is the way that Rudao wants to engage, they're going to have to try and whittle them down somehow, and it looks like they're going to try and do so with the Dunman Hunters. I did notice they do have some Trollshaw Axe Throwers, so they do have some more AP units that they can use for some high damage, but they can't afford to send the Trollshaws in range of all of these very deadly archers, and obviously it's a very, very tall ask for Rudao to get through here. But Rudao will be sort of holding the attention of all of these units over here, which may give the units on this side of things the impetus they need to start moving in more aggressively. However, you can see the Evendim Spearmen forming up the shield wall, in a sense, to sort of guard against their archers. You can already see there's a lot of dead Orc archers, a lot of dead Evendim archers as well. The Lake Town Bowmen are in a very nice position. The Elves of Escaroth are also guarding against the Lake Town Pikemen. The inaccuracy here of the Orc archers and the Evendim archers is what's standing them in relatively poor stead. The Elves of Escaroth are actually pulling back now, however. The Evendim Spearmen standing firm in their shorts. And you can see here the Orc Fodder also just sort of like, they did very well. Again, the Greenwood Lumbermen, the charge was poor, and then they just sort of stood around in melee, not really fighting back, which is why the Orc Fodder were able to actually force the Greenwood Lumbermen to retreat. I don't know what Blue Ranger was really doing with them there. That was rather unfortunate. A unit of cheap shock infantry like that can be a very useful tool indeed, but not utilised to their fullest effect here. Meanwhile, we can see here that I did notice Rune actually didn't bring any crossbows by the looks of things, which is a rather strange choice, but they have got some Narim, a lot of archers actually, for this side of things. They've got a lot of archers from Arthedain and Rune, which can keep up the skirmish pressure on the defensive line, so we may very well be seeing a very archer-heavy duel, particularly on this side of the battlefield. Rudauer, I don't think, can afford to do quite the same thing against the Mirkwood skirmishers that are over there. We do have some Scion Rim starting to head into the settlement as well, so they are a unit which is pretty tanky, you know, certainly leading the way. Maybe not the best damage dealers for their price, but you know, it takes a lot to bring them down in melee quickly. And they're going to be leading the way, potentially going into the Greenwood Lumbermen, maybe trying to head up this way. I mean, that seems to be the more defended avenue actually. Going directly across the bridge of Khazad-dûm and into sort of the Pillared Hall might be the best way to go about things, but the Scion Rim are going to be moving forward. And the Greenwood Lumbermen, they are actually going to charge in. Well, actually no, they're going to march in, which is unfortunate. Again, you know, if you in order to get the charge off, you do need to actually target them with your charge. You can't afford to just move your unit through, because if you do that, then you won't get the charge off, and particularly on a unit of shock infantry like this, that is a cardinal sin. So yeah, the Scion Rim, they may very well be the sort of unit which, technically speaking, the Greenwood Lumbermen will quite enjoy fighting with their AP. The Greenwood Lumbermen are ultimately not going to be able to stand up to the sheer quality that the Scion Rim are compared to themselves. Meanwhile, unsurprisingly, you can see here that the Dwarves and the Elves, in a combined fashion, are just pushing back the Rudauer incursions. And this is with, as well, the Rudauer Swordsman coming into play as well. So Rudauer bringing in a unit which maybe is slightly better in this sort of situation, but even so, not good enough, you would say. Another unit of Rudauer Swordsmen coming in as well, so already Rudauer is having to commit more and more infantry to this sort of front line. Eventually you would say that the manpower and the attritional based warfare will not go in Rudauer's favour, purely because it is Khazad-dûm and Mirkwood they are facing. You know, two units which augment each other's strengths for their infantry very, very well, and obviously both have got some very nasty infantry units, particularly Khazad-dûm. And here we can see the Dunman Hunters trying to get into a position where they can actually shoot. But I don't think it's going to go too well for them, because the Thurney Tower already are going to get the first volley off. Yeah, and the Thurney Tower obviously very accurate, more damaging than the Dunman Hunters. To be fair, the Dunman Hunters will actually get their fair share of kills on a lightly armoured unit of archers like the Thurney Tower as well. But having the first volley is everything, really. In this sort of situation, you can already see the Dunman Hunters taking hideous losses. And the additional accuracy will also help. There's a lot of Rudauer Swordsmen coming forward, however. The hexagonal shields marching forward in formation. And they might need another unit of infantry here actually to hold on to this front line, otherwise Rudauer could pour into this settlement. Unfortunately for them, they do have some heavy elven spears on standby should this front line need it. But the 4th Legion and the Thandrimi are in there, manpower won't last forever, so they do need to get ready with those reinforcements, I think. Meanwhile, the Scion Rim actually are retreating, having more Scion Rim corpses there actually than there were Greenwood Lumbermen, so the Lumbermen actually I think did just retreat because they didn't want to stay in melee with a unit they knew would eventually beat them. But those archers, particularly hitting them in the side there, doing a decent amount of damage to the Scion Rim there. Just every little helps when it comes to fighting a battle like this. Earls of Escroft and the Lake Town Pikemen are both being the target of all of these archers so far. A lot of arrows coming in, actually going for the right target as well, so this is a good pick from Blue Ranger here with his archers, because the Narim are the best target here because they are the most damaging of these archers, and also they do not have a shield and their armour values are not particularly high. So it is absolutely the right target to be going after here, as the arrows continue to whiz backwards and forwards. No one really engaging to a full infantry engagement over here yet, which actually surprises me somewhat, because I think, honestly, the attacks on this side, if they were a little bit more aggressive, particularly going into sort of the central avenue here, they could have a pretty decent amount of success. Obviously this would prompt the defenders to sort of reinforce, but even so, I mean, from a skirmish perspective, all they're really doing is blunting each other here. Because it's obvious that particularly Arthedain and Rune came here with a few more skirmishers than they would normally. So they're obviously banking on their archers doing some damage to some key targets. But that won't really happen if all they're doing is trading arrows with the defenders. See what they're doing now. The Orc Prodder are moving forward. We can see that the Evendim archers is trying to sort of get into a more advantageous position alongside the Orc archers. Getting a little bit closer, but the Thandrimi are holding their ground. Only 41 of them left, but they're just sort of standing there in formation with their shields. Honestly, the Orc Prodder are not really the sort of thing which are going to dissuade people from charging across into melee, but we shall see, I suppose. Heading back over to the other side, you can see that the Trollshore Axe Thrower has actually moved in. was exactly the sort of unit, yeah, the Trollshaxos immediately, they weren't going to go unnoticed, and the Thurney Tower immediately sending them packing. You can see here now the Rudar Swordsman victory is a distinct possibility. Through sheer weight of numbers, more reinforcements are going to be needed on this choke point if they're going to continue, and it just goes to show that in numbers, a basic unit of infantry like this can do the business if your opponent gets a little bit too complacent and doesn't commit any reinforcements. And they do have the reinforcements, and they have plenty of reinforcements, good reinforcements as well. They've got pikes, they've got heavy elven infantry and spears. Still the Thandrimieren and the 4th Legion Shield Guard just holding the line against the angry men from Rudauer. And this is Rudauer's most generic unit really. They haven't brought forward any of their genuine damage dealers yet, although to be fair they do have mostly spears and basic infantry in this army, which in this case is probably the best thing for them. Like I said, they need as many numbers as they can muster on this side if they're trying to go into this defensive position all on their lonesome. Thurney Tower here, I do like the look of the Thurney Tower actually. The bows in particular are very, very nice. And you can see the Dunman Hunters trying to get some casualties on them. They will succeed in that over a long period of time, but now you can see some reinforcements are on the way, and this is exactly the sort of thing which will once again swing this infantry fight back in favour of the defenders, and it's a unit of upgraded 3rd Legion, and really Rudauer can't really fight them one-to-one with anything in their army other than the finest units. Ettenmore's Troll Hunters with their javelins, Trollshaw axe throwers with their thrown axes, and of course the Witch Realm Enslavers would do the job, but you don't want to commit your general this early, I wouldn't have thought. Morale of Rudauer not really the sort of thing that can withstand such a thing. Meanwhile over here, more arrows being traded back and forth. There is actually a melee engagement going on down here, and unfortunately for Pavlos, it is between his Orc Fodder and the Hiri Alth. Now the Hiri Alth of course will rip and tear their way through a unit of standard Orc Fodder. And with those shields, they will be able to stand up pretty decently to arrow fire as well from the front. As far as Mirkwood troops go as well, they're actually fairly decently armoured, but obviously by most other factions' standard that's relatively poor. Mirkwood much more focused around their defensive skill, which is a pretty decent trade-off for them most of the time, I think. I think that defensive skill, you only have to look at how well Linden tends to perform on average to see how good defensive skill can be. And with those big shields, their lack of armour, overall, it's not going to hurt them too much, particularly against very basic archers, the like of which Mordor and Arthedain have sent forward thus far. These Orc Fodder stand absolutely no chance in melee against a very quality unit like the Hiri Alth, one of the stronger line infantry units that you can bring in the game. En masse, anyway. The elves in general can bring very, very efficient front lines indeed with all of their skill. What have we got going on over here? There's actually a bit of a melee engagement over here as well. The Thurney Tower, who are potentially out of ammunition, I would assume, being wisely charged forward, and they're actually going to finish off this unit of depleted Avendim archers, which is a good catch. All of the ammunition they still had going to waste. However, we do have the Scion Rim here, and as soon as the Scion Rim get into melee, the Thurney Tower will be outmatched. The heavy runic spears are going to prove too much. The Orc Fodder are actually retreating to try and save what little archers remain. And you can see here that the Barding Herd is that. Nope, it's the Greenwood Lumbermen are coming back down, but the Hiri Alth are going to retreat. They did take a few casualties from the archers, but nothing too serious. The Scion Rim are actually coming over here, interestingly enough, so interesting game of cat and mouse so far, trying to use different units to counter one another. The Scion Rim going in. They didn't actually fare too well against the cheap axes of the Greenwood Lumbermen last time. That was with some ranged support, and those Lake Town Bowmen, I can tell from over here, have already pulled out their swords, so they are out of ammunition. The Orc Fodder, meanwhile, the Orc Fodder wouldn't be the sort of thing that you would send in to save much of anything with their melee prowess, but the Thurney Tower, unfortunately, what's doing them in. The Orc Archers have got a perfect shot into the rear of them, but even so, that unit of Avendim Archers that was depleted, gone. Thurney Tower doing pretty well for themselves. The Nar Rim have taken a fair amount of casualties over here, only 33 of them remaining. Meanwhile, the Dalian Marksmen are here as well, shooting into healthier units of archers in the back. Another unit of Scion Rim coming forward. The Avendim Spears not really blocking any arrows, as was the intention, I'm sure. The Scion Rim are going all on their own up here, which is not really the best of decisions, I think. You can see that here the Lake Town River Patrol are right in behind. The Hiri Alth will be sufficient to defeat the Scion Rim in melee. However, this is a poor micro mistake here from Blue Ranger, charging his Lake Town River Patrol into melee. He is going to get them out of there, which is good, because obviously River Patrol are terrible in melee. And the Scion Rim will not be able to defeat Hiri Alth, however. The Scion Rim are already very tired after charging up that hill. and all it will take is a little bit of reinforcements, and the Siren Room will be easily dealt with. They're already shaken, actually. And again, unfortunately for them, they're just not supported. If they had a bit of range support, maybe they'd be able to do it a little bit better, but even then, not really the best of situations for them to be in. Over here, meanwhile, the engagements have continued, and they have continued in favour of the defenders. Here at Ek have also moved forward, so some heavy elven spears backing up the heavy dwarven infantry. And unfortunately, the only thing Rudau could really muster are more basic units to sort of keep up the pressure. And the Rudau clansmen will do that at the very least. They won't die terribly quickly, but neither will they get a huge amount of kills, and neither will they be the heroes that Rudau need in this situation. You can see that these Dunman Hunters have been trying their best, sort of poking away all this time, but unfortunately for them now, the elves have had enough of this annoyance, and they're going to skewer them. Some Trollshore Axler is getting into position now. This could be a very nice catch indeed, but you can see in the background over there are units moving around, and that's going to be pretty nasty. That's going to be a lot of kills. Some Maether Ilaz Gala moving into position, some Sons of the Fallen. There's no archers nearby, which archers are the bane of the Trollshore Axe Throwers' existence. And that's a lot of damage that they've just done, and that could be enough to turn this fight around. Another unit of fresh Rudau clansmen coming in. The Maether Ilaz Galan here are being forced to use their javelins on Trollshore Axe Throwers, which is honestly not the sort of trade they would want to be making, but the Orc Hunters of Khazad-dûm are over here as well, so with those archers, the Trollshore Axe Throwers will be very quickly dealt with, and in fact I think they are going to try and sort of shift over to the other side, so the game of cat and mouse continues, but they've already done a good job, the Trollshore Axe Throwers, carving into that unit of 3rd Legion infantry very, very efficiently. As the Rudau clansman continues to poke and prod, but you know, the numbers have equalised somewhat, but I still think the problem is going to be the Hiriek. They were untouched by that Axe Thrower salvo, and they obviously have the skill to easily mop up Rudau clansmen. They're also trying to push in to the Trollshore Axe Throwers in melee. Trollshore Axe Throwers starting to throw at them, however, and this is how Rudau generally operate. Most of their damage potential does come from their thrown units and their AP units in melee, and they didn't bring too many of their aggressive infantry units, more of their basic stuff. The Orc Hunters just shifting over. I think the Trollshore Axe Thrower is certainly being the target of the attentions of the defenders over here, rightly so as well. Meanwhile, the Siren Room were forced back down the hill very easily, actually. All on their lonesome. Meanwhile, the Baltroth Tribesmen immediately being targeted. So the defenders certainly respecting the power that the javelins can bring to the field, and several of them already dying off to the very nice position here. Nice defensive position that the Dalian Marksmen have. Obviously the Dalian Marksmen also have those shields, so they're not the easiest archer to take down in melee. And I mean, they can scarcely miss. Even if they miss the unit they're intending to go after, they'll hit something at the very least. A unit of only 1430 towers, so you can see it's still a very cagey affair, as you know, a more skirmish heavy build from both sides will tend to breed. You can see some Lake Town Bowmen over here, but as soon as the melee engagements begin, that will be when the committal will start to happen. The Thurney Tower are charging across. They're not going to achieve too much here. The Bridge of Khazad-dûm, there are these Orc Archers and Orc Fodder standing in the way, which under most circumstances are not the scariest units in the world to face, but there are enough of them to the point where this very depleted unit of Thurney Tower won't be enough to actually make too much of a dent, unfortunately for them. And you never know, that unit of 13 Thurney Tower could have been what makes the difference at the end. We'll see. There are some Moran-on Halberds as well, which Moran-on Halberds, another good unit to go after with the archers. So once again, Blue Ranger certainly picking the right targets to go after with his arrows. Moran-on Halberds, however, are certainly not the answer, I don't think, to go after Mirkwood infantry. They're trying to go after this block of polearms over here with their archers, the Barding Herd and the Morroquendi Pikes. The Morroquendi Pikes in particular, because they don't have the same armour and shield values that the Barding Herd have, but again, it's all rather inaccurate. It's by their least damaging archers as well. Well, the Thurney Tower, victory seems certain. The Thandram Erin are also coming across to lend a bit of support. That might be enough to sort of tilt this fight in favour a little bit of Mirkwood here, because these orcs are of very poor quality indeed. Meanwhile, there's another full battery of orc archers over here trying to sort of skirmish with the Dalian. Actually, I think they're going for the Lake Town Pikemen. I mean, this V shape here is all well and good, but honestly I would simply just retreat them until the orcs get up here, because it's going to take the orcs quite a while to cross the bridge and then get up the hill as well. So it's not as if you need the defensive position there from the get-go just in case the orcs blitz you. Victory seems certain now, the Thandram Erin, but even so, I mean, for a little while there, looked like the Thurney Tower were going to do the business in melee. Meanwhile, the orc archers are now trying to face off against the Hirialth, I think, but again, this is not the sort of engagement that Mordor really won, because once again, the Hirialth are going to be sort of blocking the way, and the skill, those shields from the Hirialth are really going to come in handy here as well, and they're going to receive some nice backup from the Greenwood Lumbermen. Obviously, any arrows that hit the Greenwood Lumbermen are going to kill them off pretty much instantly, but these Morannon Halberds are not in a good way. They're already shaken, of course. Orcs that are unsupported will break very, very easily, particularly in the face of elven units like this. There's a lot of arrows coming in support. The Scion Rim are now charging up the hill to try and help them out, but I think the damage has already been done. They needed to move up together if they were going to hold for any length of time. By the time they get there, I mean, Morannon Halberds have already been cut down to size. They're pointing the wrong way. Very unfortunate for them. And the Hirialth once again proving themselves to be a very, very solid line infantry unit. Even in the face of all of these arrows, those shields are standing firm. The Scion Rim are already going to retreat. I think they realise what way the wind is blowing here. Orc Javelins are moving forward, which is going to prompt a response here, I think. Because if they're allowed to get into position, they could do some pretty decent damage. But you can see immediately Blue Ranger sees them, and is immediately going to shoot several of them with the Dalian Marksman. Those Dalian Archers so far have done very, very well for themselves, I must say. Greenwood Lumbermen are charging through. I mean, they don't want to get too greedy. They're not going to be able to get through all of these Morannon Halberds and the Scion Rim. They could break them in conjunction with the Hirialth, which would be nice. And the Orc Javelins are having to get into a position to fire where they are still in full view of the Dalian Marksman, which means they're probably not going to get too many volleys off. That was already a very depleted unit there, throwing not a lot of Javelins in, and that's a huge volume of arrow fire heading into them. And already a lot of their DPS has been taken away. Yeah, but the Morannon Halberds will break. I can't imagine the Scion Rim will be too far behind under this sort of pressure. The Hirialth are charging downhill. The Orc Javelins are actually heading towards the fighting, which is madness when you think about it. The Scion Rim are also routing now. The Orc Javelins can't be out of ammunition already, but they may be killed off here. The best hope, I think, for the attackers here is if they break and then come back from routing, but no, they rout, and they're depleted enough to the point where they may not come back, so a big catch there from the defenders, a good job from them. Meanwhile, down on the bridge of Khazad-dûm, still very depleted units sort of being used to block the way. The Lake Town Bowmen have now come forward in support of the Elven units that were already here, and the Elven units are still standing, so it goes to show what calibre of units they've been facing off against, and now it's just Evendim Archers as well, so very much a wet noodle contest over here. This fight isn't really going to help or hinder either side's efforts too much, but I would say that the defenders will be more pleased with this than the attackers, because obviously they're getting into a position where they can use very, very depleted units and get a good amount of value from them. Meanwhile, back over here on the Rudar front, they have been forced back out of the settlement, which is crazy when you think about it. It does go to show how much strength they had over here just facing off against one army. However, this could be a bit of a mistake here, because the dwarves are now sallying out, and this is going to give, you know, those Troll Shiraxos doing a good amount of damage there. Those archers also managed to get a few volleys off. So this is bold, and I like it. They're going to try and scour Rudar from the field without them really being able to make any decent inroads into the settlement itself, which may very well prompt a bit more of a response on the other side for the attackers to be a little bit more aggressive, because if they wait too long, Rudar are going to be dealt with. You know, and Rudar, you can see here the Troll Shiraxos, unfortunately for them, caught in melee as well by a depleted unit of 4th Legion. The Sons of the Fallen are out here as well, so you can tell that Khazad-dûm mean business. This isn't just a throwaway force that they're sending out here. Sons of the Fallen are out here, heavy elven spears are here in force. They are going, you know, and also the Rudar Cattle is potentially going to be able to get some pretty decent kills here if they are able to bottle up the sally out to a good extent. You can see the Rudar Swordsmen engaging as well with some of the Elven units. I mean, this is honestly exactly what Rudar kind of needed. There are some Pyrannodine Pikemen as well, which I missed in the deployment phase as well, which again are a Rudar unit that I very, very much approve of. Very, very effective. Yet more Stroll Hunters are here, so this could work out very much in favour of the attackers here. Rudar are certainly using their ranged units to good effect, but even the Sons of the Fallen defeat seems certain with all of the ranged units in support. The Rudar marksmen are over here, and again, you can tell that something is quite odd when the pikemen are the ones being used super offensively. You can see over here as well that there were some elven units which did get to the catapult but were immediately broken by the fear-causing Witch Realm Enslavers again. Even elven units, if you send them in too far alone and unsupported. That's the sort of thing that can happen. It's very rare you see this section of the battlefield used for all that much in Moria, so I'm quite glad. Hiri Peng are also coming out. Maitha Ilazgalan trying to respond in kind. I mean, I think Rudar are going to win this, but I don't think Rudar are going to have all that much left over when all is said and done. I mean, their infantry force has already been crippled, really. Most of what's doing the damage here are ranged units. Pyrannodine Rangers in the background, so they did have the Rangers. The catapult crew has retreated a little bit. The Witch Realm Enslavers just pulling back. The Hiri Peng, the target of all of those arrows, but again, slightly better armoured than most of the other Mirkwood forces, so they will be able to stand up to that sort of thing a little bit better than most. Here come the Pyrannodine Pikes as well. I do love the Pyrannodine Pikes. The sort of the Viking pikeman look is very cool. The Sons of the Fallen are still standing firm. It says defeat seems certain, but they haven't really taken an awful lot of casualties. The Admiral's Troll Hunters are sort of ready in the background as well. Rudar Marksmen. Orc Hunters of Khazad-dûm firing into the formations. But again, shields, armour, they should be able to stand up to that in an okay fashion. Sentries of Khazad-dûm as well, the Rudar Marksmen. Again, it's all of the Rudar range units which are being used to good effect here. These Sentries of Khazad-dûm have been waddling around in the backlines trying to find the target to go after, but unfortunately for them they're just being kited around the place. Here, of course, Hiri Alt and Maitha Ilazgalan, without range support, these Rudar swordsmen are starting to crumble. They're getting some range support now, but yeah. Let's go and see what's happening on the other side. A little bit more of a full-on melee engagement happening over here as well. The Evendim Spearmen actually completely overrunning the Hiri Alt, so maybe the Hiri Alt getting a little bit too greedy there, chasing the enemy too far and then getting overwhelmed by the attacking forces. Unfortunately for them, however, this is a very nasty-looking phalanx indeed. Combination of Morikwendi Pikes and Barding Herd. However, the Arthedain Marksmen are now in position, so it's not as if the attackers are running low on ammunition. Speaking of which, is this a pathway you can take now? I don't think that's ever been utilised, but maybe. You can see over here that still the wet noodle contest continues as the Thurny Tower continue to hold back the enemy skirmishers trying to push across the bridge. But certainly I think the defenders have had the better of this sort of very minor trade that they've had going on back and forth across the bridge with their out of ammunition skirmishers. They are starting to pull back. They have a lot of units up here still. Still the attackers keen to use their ranged power, and the Narim trying to shoot across the bridge, but very, very inaccurately. Bit of a waste there, to be honest. A clump of lower tier Arthedain and Mordor units are here. I think probably it's time for Blue Ranger to pull these units back at this point. I mean, thankfully for them, I suppose the Barding Herd are the ones that are technically at the front, which does mean, of course, those armour and shield values are coming into play. But even so, bit of a lull over here. Let's go and see how Rudar are getting on against the Sally Out now. And it doesn't look like things... I mean, the Orc Hunters are getting focused down. You can see over here that the Sons of the Fallen, the centre of this assault, still standing firm. The Pyrannodine Pikes have been sort of split in half and they're now being finished off by the Sons of the Fallen and the Hiri Alt. There is also an engagement happening back here by the looks of things, but it's a very, very depleted unit of sentries. The Admiral's Troll Hunters will be able to easily deal with them. Again, I think Rudar will win this. The catapult is here. But Rudar really doesn't have too much of an army left. I mean, they have the Pyrannodine Rangers in the backfield somewhere. There they are. Ask and ye shall receive. I don't know if they're out of ammunition already. I would hope not. Hiri Alt are also sort of peeling off at this point. Perhaps trying to go for the catapult once again. Sadly, some missed shots there on behalf of Rudauer. But it's not as if the Elven Infantry is going to be able to really engage the catapult in melee for too long, because the Witch Realm Enslavers are right here. And they are the finest infantry unit that Rudauer have to offer. While the AP may not be terribly useful against a Mirkwood unit like that. Although maybe they'll take the bait and go after the archers here, because that would leave the catapult completely undefended. Ah, now that was a good shot. Managing to go right through the Sons of the Fallen there. And another very nice hit as well, so Rudauer's catapult really coming good there. And this Sally Out is pretty much gone. I mean, the Hiri Out will break and return to the town centre, so we may see them later. The Sons of the Fallen, however, I believe, are locked morale. which means they will stand here and they will take those catapult volleys. Meanwhile, the Witch Realm Enslavers are going to be able to finish off these very few Orc Hunters of Khazad-dûm as well, with their large battle axes slash tridents. Very menacing looking unit indeed. And now it's really just the Sons of the Fallen who are sort of surrounded on all sides, really, taking ranged fire. Again, just bisected with the catapult. At this point I would probably hold fire with the catapult. You don't need the catapult at this point to be able to finish them off. The Rudar marksmen are here. I don't know if the Troll Hunters still have ammo. Probably finish them off in melee with just about anything at this point. The Witch Realm Enslavers could handle that. So yeah, an interesting move to sally out. Ultimately, I don't think it really worked out in the way the defenders were hoping. But Rudar ultimately are just going to be here in support of the assault on the other side at this point. Speaking of the assault on the other side, the Osterni Tower are still firing their missiles, sort of poking and prodding away at the Nar Rim there. Lake Town Bowmen marching into position. Meanwhile, the melee engagement has begun, and there must be javelins at work here, because that's a lot of dead troops right on the front. Yes, there are Orc javelins here, which must have been the because again they can scarcely miss. It's a perfect shot for the Orc javelins, really, which is the problem, because I mean in melee this phalanx would be a nightmare to try and break through. And I think, you know, now the defenders realise the vulnerability of their position. It's a shame they didn't do that before they took all those volleys of arrows and javelins, but they are going to retreat backwards with the Morriquendi pikes and the Barding Herd, form up another defensive line with the support of the 1st Legion pikes as well. So some of the nastiest polearm units in the game. Very potent combination, even if the Morriquendi pikes have been depleted somewhat by this assault. More units moving in as well, more Nar Rim. Delupengi Emondui are getting ready to shoot right into the side of any attack that comes up here, which obviously with the body piercing would be extremely devastating. The Arguei Inanwe are here, the 3rd Legion, the depleted Greenwood Lumbermen, and some Swordmasters, so it's a well defended position, this. Yolag Higher here. Are they going to be the ones that just sort of try and charge right through the centre of this formation? I mean, I wouldn't recommend it. The Olag High are very strong, but there are so many units here, they will just get bogged down, I think. There's also the AP to consider, which will be very useful against the Olag High. Looks like they're just sort of waiting, biding their time. What are Rudar going to do, I think, is the ultimate question. Maybe it's so the Sons of the Fallen are still back here. Still fighting away, doing their people proud, but there's only 10 of them remaining. And they are going to be ultimately overwhelmed. The Atomor's Troll Hunters may be spearmen, but there's still no slouches in melee. And also the numbers of the Rudar marksmen coming in to sort of make sure of the victory. Yeah, I mean, Rudar's army, it's not really much of an army anymore. They do still have that catapult, but again, I mean, having a look at the defences, as we sort of glitch our way through the walls, there's Maitha Ilaz Gallen, still some here Elang as well, some sentries. Yeah, I mean, Aradirith and the Orc Hunters, with the archer positions here, there's not really much Rudar are going to be able to do. If I were Rudar, I would say that the time has come to probably wait. Wait and sort of wait for your fellows on the other side to start making some sort of progress. Because then that will sort of siphon off more and more of their attention over onto the other side, and then potentially you can strike. The Nar Rim here, I'm actually surprised they're not going this way. It looks as though they are intent on going up the very steep hill. They're charging up here as well, which is going to wear these troops out much more quickly. And now you can see that once again they're leading the way with some of their trashier units, as it were. We are actually sort of well beyond the halfway point, so let's have a look at the percentage of kills. And the defenders are ahead, only by 7%, which of course in matches like this time and time again we've seen the attackers come good in the late game. But by the same token, none of the elites have really been expended yet. The most elite unit we've seen die is really the Sons of the Fallen, and it's not as if they went away without doing anything of note. The Flagrim are marching forward, the Morannon Halberds are coming forward, but there we can see the River Patrol starting to use their javelins into this blob, doing a decent amount of damage there. Flagrim and Morannon Halberds clustered together like that is a pretty good target to go after as well, I would think. Flagrim in particular, trying to get rid of that AP. The Delupengi Emondui also using their body piercing there. Maybe not on troops that I would recommend using them against, but it's still going to be more damage done. And this front line, A combination of 3 deadly polearm units, 1st Legion pikes, Morriquendi pikes and Barding Herd. They're not really going to be able to do much here. I think they're going to try and push their way through, but the sort of the multi-layered nature of this phalanx means that they're not really going to be able to achieve that, I don't think. The dwarves, of course, have also got that extra mass going for them. So unfortunately for them, I don't think this is going to work. Already as well, they're tired. You can see the Orc Javelins are in the background, which may be the answer once again to try and do some damage to this very solid looking front line. Orc fodder. The Olakai are biding their time. When the line is weak enough, I assume the plan is to try and get the Olakai in here to smash it to pieces, but they're not really doing a huge amount of damage so far, the Orcs. I mean, they're trying to push through with sheer mass, you can tell. The Athala Rangers getting into position, but as soon as, like, there is the threat of them starting to push through, this unit of 3rd Legion is ready to come in as well. I think now actually might be the time. I mean, it's a lot of numbers that they're trying to use to push through here. And they are actually starting to get some kills. Now the Olakai are moving forward, and there's also Black Legion of Barad-dûr, so yeah, this is the play for the attackers. They're trying to use their mass, trying to use sheer brute strength to push through. Here come the 3rd Legion. There's also some other infantry units in the background over there, some Sword Masters of Karnan, which may be needed actually. The Olakai and the Black Legion are here. If the Lake Tamara Patrol are out of ammunition, they need to be committed to melee as well. We just need more warm bodies on the front line at this point, I think, for the defenders. Here comes the Black Legion. They are pushing in, and this is what the Black Legion offer you. I think there the defenders got a little bit complacent. I mean, you can see here now that both units of Rangers are unloading onto this huge cluster of troops that's pushing forward, but I'm not sure that's going to be enough. It's not going to kill them off quickly enough, certainly. The Olakai are going to stand firm. The Black Legion of Barad-dûr, any shots that hit them from the front are barely going to affect them at all with that large shield value that they have. There's a whole load of Arthedain men-at-arms coming up as well. Now would be the time to, I think, push on all fronts as well, to start pushing across the bridge. Sword Masters of Karnan have managed to sort of get into melee. I mean, it's not a complete disaster yet for the defenders, but it's getting there. And you can see here that the Flag Rim trying to push through as well. The Athala Rangers, the frame rate really doesn't enjoy body-piercing projectiles. Yeah, and I feel as though the defenders got complacent there. You know, the Black Legion and the Trolls, they're always the sort of thing which the Orcs can, well, Mordor can bring to the battle. And they should have seen them coming. They should have brought more reinforcements over here, because losing 3 units of quality polearms like that is not good. In one fell swoop, this defensive line crumbled, and I feel as though the defenders must have been feeling quite smug about their position up here, but now it's just been blasted to pieces because they didn't have appropriate reinforcements. You need to have reinforcements close by if you're going to do that. And again, the only thing they had was 1 unit of 3rd Legion and a unit of Sword Masters of Karnan, which just wasn't sufficient. And the 3rd Legion and the Sword Masters of Karnan are now just being blown through as well. The Black Legion have taken losses from doing that, but the map control which the attackers have just gained from doing that is very, very significant. The Athala Rangers are going to try and run, but the Trolls are going to try and hunt them down. So now, you know, the town centre is open for assault at this point, and no, 1st Legion is not the answer. You need more. Did you not learn anything from what just happened? You need a significant defensive line to stop Black Legion and Trolls. You can't just send in 1 unit and expect them to do it, no matter how elite they are. Meanwhile, I think, indeed we do, we have a second sally out over here. The Orc Hunters getting into position, the sentries of Khazad-dûm coming over here, the Witch Realm Enslavers trying to chase down the Aradirith Amon Lang, but I think the Witch Realm Enslavers might be goners, to be honest with you, because they're being shot in the back, they're being kited around all over the place. And the rest of the army, Rudar Marksmen, the Catapult crew, being cut to ribbons by the Maithir Lasgallan and the Hiri Lung. As soon as the Hiri Lung are done with the Catapult crew and the Hranadine Rangers of all things, I'm sure they will move on to the Rudar Marksmen, and that will be the end of Rudawa. Honestly though, I mean, the Witch Realm Enslavers are over here. They do actually manage to get a charge off, which is unfortunate for the Aradirith, but the Aradirith are AP and melee as well with those nice axes, and they've got some good skill. If they stood their ground, they might have been able to do something in melee there, particularly with the support of those Orc Hunters. They seem content to just sort of kite around them, and I don't think it matters too much anyway. as this fight continues. There's only going to be one winner. So Rudar are about to be sort of wiped away. Let's see if the defenders are going to learn anything.
The enemy general is no true man. He flee the field of battle and abandons his men to their fate.
Unfortunate there for Kvorin to admit defeat, because while he was certainly going to lose this, he could at the very least have done some more damage with the Witch Realm Enslavers. Maybe not much more, so it's not going to affect the battle too much, but still. Now, the attackers only can attack from essentially two angles into the town centre now at this point. Meanwhile, it is good to see at least that they've got some Khazad reclaimers in support, and they have appropriate levels of infantry to move in should they need to. Let's see. It's going to be down here now. I think you can see that there's a bit of a mobilisation happening from the Dalian troops as the Temple Guard are forced back across the bridge. Send around on infantry over here as well. Bit of a counter-attack here potentially from Dale. The Temple Guard are here. I mean, they can't just sit here and take a bunch of AP arrows to the face. That's going to be very unfortunate if they do that. You can see the AP archers coming in. The mighty Numenorian steel bows that the Temple Guard use. They're going to be able to do damage even to the Elves of Esgaroth. Around on infantry obviously are going to be broken very, very quickly, but they need to get across here and they need to stop the Temple Guard from firing. The Temple Guard, one of only 3 AP archers in the game. They will also be a part of Numenor in the upcoming .97 patch, of course. Another catapult shot there. Missing its mark, unfortunately just wide of the Temple Executioners. That, however, did find its mark, but unfortunately it was only on
We have captured the enemy's general. That will teach
basic
the
archers, or
Khazad
basic spears.
to turn tail and run.
Yep, and the Rudar general dies. Not that that matters too much, because obviously the Rudar army is very much gone. I think they were actually routing into the settlement, which is why. Very, very odd indeed. But this is, of course, going to allow the defenders to focus their efforts on just the one side of things. As I find myself in the ceiling of the map there. Some Lake Town bowmen firing their missiles. The Girian's paladins are coming down here as well. So Dale, intent on counter-attacking here. I mean, this is a bold move. I mean, the Nar Rim are over here. They're shaken up. They'd be able to do decent damage to the pikemen, actually, as they're sort of marching in formation, but I can't imagine this is going to go too well when the Girian's paladins arrive. The Elves of Esgaroth also on the front line. Unfortunately for them, however, the Arthedain marksmen simply able to turn around. Again, another bold move from the defenders, but I'm not sure that it's going to pay off, because, once again, the attackers are ready. They've got a lot of ranged units that they can bring to the field. The Temple Guard are here. The Temple Guard don't need to return fire on the Lake Town bowmen, to be honest with you. They just need to keep firing on the targets they're going after. I'd go after the Girian's paladins, actually. AP archers are, you know, the best at dealing with bodyguard units like that. The ultimate general snipers, really. Here come the Olag High, and they're going to be just the ticket for doing a lot of damage in here as well. Elves of Esgaroth and Lake Town pikemen, not really the sort of thing you want to go up against Olag High with. They're giant mallets. Oof. And that's another nasty volley coming in there, and it's from Dunedain Rangers as well, so under most circumstances you imagine that the defenders will have the ability to use Rangers most effectively throughout the entire battle, but that has not proved to be the case here. The Nazgul are moving in, so yeah, this has been an ill-fated assault here from the Blue Ranger, I think. We've got Arthedain pikemen moving up now as well. Gamprim moving up, so more reinforcements are coming through. I mean, the defenders can focus on one side more than the other now, but this was a bit of a suicidal move, I think, from Dale, and ultimately I think Blue Ranger could be costing his team the battle. His general's also being committed in as well. I mean, he was part of the Girian's paladins units, I assume, which they'll be able to do good damage to the Olag High, provided they can actually, you know, lay down their melee effectiveness without being shot up by the Dunedain Rangers. The Black Legion of Barad-dûr have turned back around. The Bridge of Khazad once again proving to be the main source of action so far. Lake Town bowmen firing in. A good hit from the catapult there, hitting both the Arthedain pikemen and the Gamp Rim. You can see here now, the Temple Executioners, the Temple Guard, the Nazgul, the Olag High, the strongest that Mordor has to offer, charging forward. Javelins also in support. They need to get a nice catapult hit here, because it would flatten so many elite troops. it's the perfect shot, and I think they're still going after this unit of Evendon Spears, which is tragic. Absolutely tragic. And the window of opportunity has left them, unfortunately, I think now, because they're starting to push through. And once again, another nice hit, but it would have been so much better if it was here. And now, unfortunately for them, the Olag Kai have just barged through the defensive line. They're going to be going after the catapult crew. The Athala Rangers are here, the Lake Town Bowmen are here, but they're under such pressure from the enemy skirmishers. Unfortunate for them. Sword Masters of Khanan are coming down once again. Aggressive moves here, primarily from Dale as well. Don't know what they've got left in terms of a few dwarven units up here. Defensive position here. Alguaiti, Nanwaith and Thurny Towers shooting into the runic forces as they advance, but I think the noose is tightening for the defenders. I think that push through all of those phalanx units may have been the defining moment of this battle here. There goes the general at the hands of a black Luminary. Olag Kai still proving to be they've really been some of the MVPs here, the Olag Kai. Definitely been the centre of most of what Mordor have been up to in this fight, other than obviously the elongated skirmish phases. It's a fairly chunky infantry force this, but once again, I mean, there's a lot of arrows coming in. Hiri Peng to make the Ilazgalan moving forward, but the Mordor elites are here in force, and I'm not sure whether the defenders... I mean, the Dwarven elites probably could stop them, especially after the Mordor elites have already been in combat. But even so, I mean, they still have a lot of manpower left. There's a lot of red arrows on the mini-map, as you can see. Now moving forward. Once again, the halberds and the pikes. The Olag Kai maybe starting to run out of steam a little bit. They've lost a few unit models at this point. The Thala Rangers in a pretty good place, however, sort of shooting right into the side of these units over here, but that is going to attract the attention of the Olag Kai once again, who are going to go over there and Goomba stomp them. Let's have a look at what's going on over here. So actually another assault going on this side. Some runic infantry moving forward, the flag rim. Unfortunately, however, this time they don't have the sheer weight of numbers to push through this mighty phalanx. The 1st Legion, the Hirial, and the 4th Legion Shield Guard easily going to be able to hold the flag rim at bay. Quite a lot of reinforcements over here. They're just sort of probing the lines, I suppose. We'll see how that goes for them. What we've got going on over here? Yeah, the Athala Rangers have just been hunted by the Olag Kai, and these are the only 3 Olag Kai left, so the rest of them did die on the front line, which is good news for the defenders. Evendon Spearmen are moving forward, which certainly don't have the same sort of presence as the Olag Kai do. I'm not sure if the Mordor elites are actually on this front line. They may have been sort of held back in reserve a little bit, or they may have moved up to the other angle. Arthedain Pikemen, Men-at-Arms, more Flag Rim, more Scion Rim. The dismounted Fornost Rain Knights are coming forward, so a slightly stronger unit. Some Hiri Peng as well. The Delupeng, Em and Dwyer are here. That rhymes. But again, it's not really the best of shots for them. I mean, they're sort of scything their way through some of these Arthedain Men-at-Arms, but again, not really the most important target to go after. The Hiri Lung blocking the way of this advance. I mean, they'd be able to beat Fornost Rain Knights 1-to-1, but with the support of all of those Men-at-Arms, I think the numbers are going to be enough for Arthedain to win that, and you can tell that they're just sort of pushing through here. And that's the one thing, I mean, a lot of people are not really a fan of just sort of pushing through, but as the defenders, if you don't react to it in the appropriate way, you've only got yourself to blame if your front line falls apart. Now fortunately they do have reinforcements on hand. Mate to Ilazgal and Sentries of Khazad-dûm are moving across, which could lead to a bit of an overextension from Arthedain here. And again, if the attackers do use it and it doesn't work for them, it can blow up in your face very, very easily. And this front line over here is holding. There's Narrim still trying to skirmish. The Hiri Peng sort of attacking from the side. Heavy Elven Archers, of course, are pretty damn good in melee. They're doing their bit to sort of try and throw off this assault. The Flag Rim's AP will not be all that useful against them either. Let's go and see what's happening up here, shall we? In these little nooks, more and more troops are moving forward.
By the grace of you, our men have slain the
One of the enemy generals is dead. That may be the Mordor one as well, if the Nazgul are in there. The Khazad-dûm reclaimers are starting to throw their axes in there. Once again, however, you can see now the Minas Morgul Chosen are trying to push through. So once again, will the defenders respond to this in the appropriate way? Now, this is not the Black Legion, so the Minas Morgul Chosen don't have the same level of punch, but they have managed to sort of shatter the First Legion Pike's phalanx. And making some inroads as well. They're going to take some pretty hefty losses from doing this. It's 2 units of them. The axes are coming in here, still dealing damage. And that is the difference between just a unit of elite spears and the unit of sort of great shield infantry. The fact that they haven't managed to punch all the way through. Now there are some orc hunters moving into position, but not really the reinforcements I'd have in mind. Also the Scion Rimmer here, which can also help out with pushing as spears with shield wall. More Arthedain men-at-arms are coming forward, so now obviously the attackers are really starting to pile the pressure on both sides. Still able to attack from 2 angles, which is very important. Even with the demise of Rudar earlier on. More of the Arthedain units moving into position to try and sort of shore up this assault. They need more infantry over here. The Dwarven player needs to be more willing to use his elite infantry, I think, because at the moment they're just sort of sat here doing nothing. And they're needed. You know, it's now or never. We're into the final 10,000 frames, and still the defenders are ahead, but only just. I'm still interested to see if the Nazgul are actually on the front line. I can't really tell. I mean, here we can see the Arthedain Pikemen. I mean, defeat seems certain at this point. The Temple Guard are here, the Temple Executioners. Don't know where the Nazgul would have gone. And at this point, the attackers starting to run out of reinforcements to commit. They have a unit of Scion Rim they can commit forward. Dunedain Peacekeepers are also coming forwards as well. But the defenders have got this front line pretty well sorted out. And you know, again, even though I think that the initial sort of full assault from Dale was a bit of a mistake, this defensive line over here has held up very, very nicely. The Morroquendi Pikes and the Barding Herd at its centre, and then supported by the elite killing power of both Mirkwood and Khazad-dûm. Has proven to be very, very effective so far. Baltroth Tribesman defeat seems certain. Naturally. They're going up against the Hiri Lang and Hiri Peng. Temple Executioners are very depleted, of course. They don't have the armour upgrades this time. There aren't enough of them anymore either to really make too much of an impact. The Black Legion of Barad-dûr have also been laid low. This sort of flanking assault has also been stopped in its tracks. They managed to push through the initial unit of Hiri Lang. But ultimately, the Maitha Ilaz-Galan and the sentries of Khazad-dûm were enough to stop them, and now this assault is running out of steam, and they're dropping like flies, actually. Crazy. So, over here, I think, is where the attackers are sort of placing most of their hopes at this point. The Arthedain marksmen trying to shoot in to the Agwe Inanwith in the back. But this front line is holding firm. I mean, the Lake Town Road Patrol have been committed to the front line to try and stop them from pushing any further in. Just here for their mass. Obviously in melee they're not going to be able to achieve all that much. They will hold their ground here, surrounded by some strong units. The Khazad-dûm Reclaimers are here. Heavy Elven Spears ready to be committed as well. And finally we have a unit of elite infantry coming forward. With the guards of Khazad-dûm on the front line, you know, that front line will hold. 3 hit points on the guards of Khazad-dûm. Very much the outliers in terms of bodyguard infantry. You can see here that the attackers are so desperate to try and push through. And the guards of Khazad-dûm are here. And also the Hiriak should be able, yep, they're moving in as well, which is good to see. Patching up that line. Dunedain Peacekeepers, they're trying to move in, but they're going to break themselves. They've pushed their infantry too hard. And the Elven Spears are not actually moving into position, which is interesting. Here come the Baltroth Tribesmen. Trying to force their way through. They're so desperately pushing. But again, trying to push through like this does cost you. I mean, if it doesn't end up succeeding, the amount of manpower you end up losing as a result is pretty extreme. That unit of Hiriak should probably just commit itself forward. Meanwhile, down here, this assault is honestly starting to crumble for the attackers, so I can see why the desperation is starting to kick in on the other front. The Scion Rim have moved forward. Pretty much the one unit they had in reserve has been committed forward, but unfortunately for them, the Sons of the Fallen and Delupeng EM and we are moving in. They're also taking pot shots from the Lake Town Bowmen. Here come the Carmel's Chosen, another unit. Rune did have a few more units in reserve actually, so some Gamp Rim. So all is not lost potentially, especially, you know, the Carmel's Chosen are a very strong infantry unit as well, so on the front line they could make the difference. We also have the D9 Peacekeepers, of course. But I think what is ultimately going to be the thing which the attackers simply aren't going to be able to overcome at this point are the Dwarven elites. Here come the Hiriak. Custom Reclaimers may be out of ammunition because they've got those two-handed axes out. And that's going to be a real problem because now, committing forward, the 1st Legion Pikes are still alive to an extent, which is impressive considering they took that big push. So more dismounted Fornos Terrain Knights are moving forward at this point in time. Gamp Rim, more Pikemen. Valtroth Tribesmen are still here. The Arthedain Marksmen trying to take pot shots at what they can, but do they have the strength in melee, the attacks at this point? I somewhat doubt it, to be honest with you. Heavy swordsmen are coming into play now, but again, the heavy elven spears are here to sort of help shore the line up. And it looks like the custom reclaimers, they still have those axes out. Heavy swordsmen are not really the best thing to start pushing through lines with either. They're not going to be able to make it through the spears. They're also pushing right through where the guards of Khazad-dûm are. So they are going to be brought down to size pretty harshly. Here come more axes thrown into that large blob. You may as well just use your ammunition at this point. Really pile the pressure on the attackers, bleed them of more of their manpower. How are the Sons? The Carmel's Chosen are actually doing the business here on the front line though. More range fire coming in. The Lake Town Bowmen, the Orc Hunters of Khazad-dûm trying to do what damage they can to the front line, but I think this front line is finally starting to succumb. Rune may be the ones to ultimately push their way through here. All of these arrows just flying all over the place. Have we here? Scion Rim victory is almost a certainty. More arrows. I think it's only Elven Archers that get the body piercing when it's fire arrows, not anything else. The Dunedain Peacekeepers defeat. I mean, even if they do get through here, they're not going to be able to force their way all the way up that ramp against the Dwarven elites, which again puts more emphasis on this front line over here, because if they can push through over here, who knows, anything is possible, as they say. Dunedain Rangers, you know, that body piercing, starting to do some pretty good work there on the Khazad-dûm Reclaimers. They've got some dismounted Knights of Illuminus in reserve, some Valtroth Tribesmen, but again, I feel as though they are running out of reserves that they can commit the attackers, but so too are the defenders, technically speaking. With all of those axes being thrown right into those Dunedain Rangers. The AP won't help them out too much, but even so. And they still have these two, the Legion Bodyguard and the Mithril Guard. The Mithril Guard's AP in particular is something which, can the attackers truly deal with that? I'm not so certain. The joint elf and dwarf front line is holding very resolutely. You can see that a couple of the Fornos Terrain Knights managed to get in behind the lines, but they're immediately just being executed by the Hiri Pang. What have we here? These Scion Rim again. Scion Rim take a wild eye. They've managed to hold up. You know, they will ultimately be destroyed, I think, but the centre of this assault over here, the Carmel's Chosen.
Our men are winning the battle. If we continue like this, we will smash the enemy.
Carmel's Chosen doing the business. Over here, the Aradirith Amon Lank fighting off against Nar Rim and Gamp Rim. Gamp Rim not really able to get into a decent formation, which is going to allow the Aradirith to murder them very, very efficiently. Still some Temple Guard left alive, which is impressive in its own way. Some Dunedain Peacekeepers as well, so yeah, I think the attackers may very well end up winning this. I mean, there's some more fire arrows coming in from the Orc Hunters. You won't break the Carmel's Chosen, you may very well break the units that are around them. The Argueyi Nanwaith are down here as well, so yeah, actually, I don't think they are going to break through here after all. The Argueyi Nanwaith are exactly the sort of thing which are going to shore up this defensive line. The Carmel's Chosen, not really going to be able to punch their way through there. Khazad-dûm Reclaimers being committed to melee now.
If we continue like this, we will smash the enemy.
Yeah, I don't really think that the attackers have got much left now. I mean, they've got the dismounted Knights of Illuminus. The Rangers are trying to get into position to shoot as well, but I just think the quality of what the defenders have left is going to be too much for the attackers to stand. More arrows being loosed, but again it's just into units that are already broken. Still some 1st Legion pikemen standing. Guards of Khazad-dûm obviously on the front lines, still standing firm. How many of them are left actually? 28. I mean, they have taken losses, of course they have, but 3 hit points is a lot to try and burn your way through. They're such a solid unit. In and amongst all of these Elven units as well, more Dwarven reinforcements was always going to be a big ask. Let's go and see what's happening in the Pillared Hall. Yeah, the addition of the Arguein Armweight has certainly turned this fight in the favour of the defenders. The Carmel's Chosen may very well be a strong unit, but there's only so much they can achieve. They've already been in combat as well. What's going on over here? The Aradirith Armor on Lank again, another personal favourite of mine from the Mirkwood roster. It's always good to have an Elven unit that has AP, and put on top of that the fact that they are a very elite arch unit as well. Got a pretty good all-round unit. They're expensive, of course. They can also hide, though. Crazy the amount of utility they have. More arrows coming in from across the way. The Lake Town Bowmen, yet again, chipping in with their own damage. And of course, against all of these units, I mean, the Gamprin do have shields on their back, but ultimately, shields on the back is not really worth a great deal of a shield value. It makes a difference, sure, but it's not going to save you in the long run. The Baltroth Tribesmen just being poked to death now by the Sons of the Fallen. The Carmel's Chosen are pretty much on their own at this point. They still have a few Arthedain pikemen and a few Flagrim helping them out, but other than that, they're being left to fight pretty much the finest that the Woodman Realm has to offer, all on their lonesome. And Thranduil and his mates are about to wipe the Easterlings clean from this section of Moria, which again is going to leave just the one assault. And now we can see that the final units have been committed. The Dismounted Knights of Numinous just being thrown in. At this point you may as well. The fight is beyond the attackers at this point, but you may as well just commit everything forward, see what damage you can do. A couple of Greenwood Lumbermen moving forward, a couple of Swordmasters of Karnan. Dwarven Heavy Metal doesn't need to be too much once again. Each bodyguard. Did the Mithril Guard get committed over here? Doesn't look like it, so they must have been committed down here instead. To the fight that's already been largely won. Yes, indeed, the Mithril Guard are down here, which is only going to hasten the demise of this runic assault. The Aradirith are successful over there. The Sons of the Fallen continuing to just sort of hound the Baltroth Tribesmen into the dirt. And now here we go. Arthedain pikemen starting to rout. Carmel's Chosen will stand and fight to the bitter end, but ultimately their fate is sealed as well. Those Lake Town Bowmen trying to sort of again get what kills they can. Don't know who will get the most kills in this. I have a feeling the Dwarven player will probably actually get the least, purely because they were the ones that sort of kept most of their strength back till towards the end, other than that sally out for Rudar, of course. And there goes Rune's General. And that's going to be enough to break off the Baltroth Tribesmen as well, so that's pretty much the end of Rune. Only 3 Carmel's Chosen left alive. All in a little blob. Most of what's killing is attacking them as well is, well, now that the Axemen are here, I was going to say most of what was getting them was spears, but those Aradirith just carved through them. So that's going to be the end of this assault, which means, of course, this is the last of it. And it looks as though Arthedain going to be the last attacker left standing. And now, committing forward what they have left, the Legion Bodyguard on their way over here as well to try and finish off this front line. Defeat seems certain for the Arthedain forces. Most unfortunate if Balin were to die here in the late game after sort of saving himself for this final engagement. 9 Rangers here. Ding the King. The only army that really has anything left at all. The Gamprin broke. News of their general's death has caused the Easterlings to lose hope for the fight. There's a glitching pike there. Still 1st Legion on the front line as well. They've managed to hold. So even in spite of that pretty quick collapse of that pretty strong defensive position the defenders held, they were still able to recover from that. They were able to be aggressive as well. They chased Rudauer out of the settlement and killed them outside of Moria, which is impressive in its own right. And again, I mean, all three of the defensive factions, I think particularly Mirkwood and Khazad-dûm complement each other really very, very well indeed. And you know, Dale also chips in themselves, because one thing that Mirkwood and Khazad-dûm maybe lack are sort of heavily armoured archers, which can sort of engage in a skirmish fight over the long haul, and that's something Dale can certainly provide as well. So ultimately, very good synergy between the defensive factions here. The attackers maybe going in a little bit too much for the archer game, and that ended up hurting a little bit. I also feel as though what certainly helped the defenders a little bit was the fact that Rudauer was all on their own. I mean, they really needed to split up 2 and 2, I think, to sort of apply equal pressure on both sides of Moria. As it was, you know, the defenders knew that they were able to sort of send more of their strength over to defend against the 3 armies, and they were able to ultimately chase Rudauer out of the settlement and kill them outside. So, again, Rudauer had their moments with Trollshaw axe throwers and the like, but ultimately it was always going to be a very difficult fight for them. This mounts Knights of Anubis being overrun. The Dunedain Rangers are doing their best to get some kills. This is going to be the end of the battle. The Guards of Khazad-dûm and the Khazad-dûm Reclaimers on their home turf are going to be the ones to bring this fight to its end. There he goes. Look at it. He's running off. Is he going to get shot? I mean, I don't know if he's going to be able to survive this. I think the Dunedain Rangers are going to break the Delupeng Yemenduia. Look at that. I think the Orc Hunters are going after him. No, he manages to just squeak away. So the Arthedain General will live to fight another day by the looks of things, as he leaves his fellow Dunedain behind to die. And the defenders will win. So there we go. A 3v4 in which the defenders win again. Very well played from the defenders for the most part. Again, a couple of mistakes, but
all
ultimately
civilized peoples will be awed by the victory we have won here today.
Ultimately, good teamwork, good interplay between them, and obviously very fine synergy as well. The Dwarves didn't get the least actually, and I suppose that does come from the fact that, you know, Dale's assault was rather ill-advised. But Mirkwood getting the most kills doesn't surprise me too much. Again, the Mirkwood archers were a very strong factor throughout the entire battle. Rune getting the least kills, which does surprise me a little bit. I thought that maybe that would still go to Rudauer. But even so, Mordor getting the most kills, maybe not too surprised about that, with the Black Legion and the Olag High being as effective as they were. But let's see, Blue Ranger was the player who we were watching the battle from the perspective of, so what did the most damage for him? Dalian Marksman by the looks of things, which doesn't surprise me too much. The initial skirmish fights definitely were pretty good for Dale, I think, overall. They managed to sort of do well for themselves, but you can see a lot of their infantry did not do very well, because again, the Earls, the Girians Paladins, the Swordmasters of Karnan, they were all committed to fights that they didn't really have any business being in, and that was ultimately why Dale ended up not doing quite as well as his allies. And you know, you have to say that if Dale didn't do that, then the victory would have been even more in favour of the defenders. So yeah, very well played. Obviously, I feel as though one of the main factors was the fact that Rudauer was attacking on their own. Very skirmish heavy approach from the attackers as well, which on a map like Moria is questionable, because the defenders are going to be able to so easily just respond in kind, and especially when you know you're going to have to deal with the infantry of both Mirkwood and especially of Khazad-dûm, you need to have some heavy hitters in melee or bring some javelins that you can save till the end. So yeah, hope you enjoyed this. It was a fairly long one, been a little while since we've seen a battle on Moria. The defenders won, which I'm sure is going to please quite a few people. Next, I'm not sure, because again, the schedule is a little bit all over the place at the moment, as it usually is. And also there is that event, which as of the recording of this video has not happened yet, but there is something happening on 0.97 over the weekend, a sort of showcase of some of the new work that the developers have been doing. And I will be a part of that. I don't know if I'm actually going to be showing it myself, but I will be a part of it nonetheless, so keep a lookout for that. And yeah, hope you enjoyed this. Hope you join me for whatever is next.